it's time to cook with Susan Beck. Today I'm going to show you a simple 6-ingredient recipe for homemade pizza crust. I'm going to be making my pizza crust on a pizza stone today. You can just use a regular pizza pan or even just a jelly roll pan. But I really like the pizza stone, and one of the reasons for that is if I preheat this in my oven and get it really, really good and hot, I think I just get nice browning and kind of a crisper bottom on my pizza. So before we go any further, we're going to put this into a 425-degree oven, and it's going to be in there while it preheats and waits for us to get our crust together. So I'm going to put it on the middle rack, which is also where I'll be baking the pizza when I get to that point. So today, first I'd like to talk a little bit about why I might want to make this pizza crust from scratch rather than buying it in one of those like boxes where all you have to do is add the water. Well, today I'm going to use sugar, salt, yeast, a little bit of olive oil, and flour, along with the water that you would need with one of those box mixes. So for starters, it's pretty simple ingredients that most households have on hand. So you're not buying anything strange, or you don't need to plan ahead a whole lot. My bigger reason though is some of the things that come in those box mixes. For example, here's one that has hydrogenated lard. I'm not even sure I can say this. Tocopherolus preservative, BHT preservative. I have no idea what BHT is. Dextrose, sodium aluminum phosphate. It does have salt and baking soda in it. Sorbitan monosaurit, some wheat starch, some niacin, some reduced iron, some tricalcium phosphate, and thiamine. You've probably heard, and if you can't pronounce all the words on the ingredient list, it's maybe not the best thing for you. So by making it at home, you can keep it nice and healthy. In my mixing bowl, I have 2 1/4 cups of flour. I'm sorry, I have 2 1/2 cups of flour. I'm mixing that up with my yeast. I have 2 1/2 cups of flour, and into that is going to go my yeast. I like this instant yeast, and I'm going to put 2 1/4 teaspoons, which is the same amount that you would get in those little packages at the baking aisle. But I buy this in a bigger container, and this is instant yeast. Instant yeast looks just like the yeast that you would get in those little packages, you know, the brown granular. The difference is I can mix it right into my dry ingredients, and I don't have to like let it sit with the sugar and hope that the yeast are starting to bubble just right. And ever since I switched to instant yeast, maybe like 5 years ago, I've never had trouble with getting my bread products and cinnamon rolls and things to rise. So we have that in there along with a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of sugar. And the sugar is helpful to get those yeast activated there. Those I'm going to simply stir. I can use a wooden spoon, or I've got this handy Dutch whisk here that I'm using today to stir this up. Into there is going to go a tablespoon of olive oil and my water. Tablespoon of olive oil, and then my water needs to be heated into about 120 degrees, and I'm actually going to take the temperature of that today, and until you get used to your microwave and seeing exactly where you should set it to, you know, how many seconds it takes to get to that point, it is a very good idea. This is kind of an important step in having successful yeast products. So I'm going to go over to the microwave and set this for, I'm going to start at about 1 minute and 20. My water has been in the microwave. Again, I just want this between 110 to 130 degrees. I do not want boiling water going in with my yeast. And I'm sitting right now at about 132 degrees. I just got a new microwave recently, and I think it heats a little faster, so I need to cut back my time a little bit. Usually somewhere between 1 minute and 1 minute and 30 on most microwaves is good. So if it's a little too hot, just let it sit for a little bit, or dump a little out and refill it with some cold water. Already mine's dropping back down to around that 130 degree mark. So I think I'm safe to add this to my yeast. I'm going to put it in. Now I can use a wooden spoon, or again, I'm going to use my new fancy Dutch whisk that one of my friends gave me and stir this around. One nice thing about that metal is it kind of falls off there more easily than a wooden spoon, but no need to worry about what utensil you're using to mix your pizza dough. So I'm just going to turn it around there until all of the flour, salt, sugar, all those dry ingredients are incorporated with my flour and with my oil. Now this is still on the sticky side, as you can see, but that's how we want it. We're going to leave it at that point, and we are going to cover it with a clean towel and set it someplace warm. So sometimes in the winter I'll set this right by my fireplace. On a really sunny day I might set it in a window. Today's just kind of a cool fall day, and I think the warmest place to set this is on top of my stove, back where my oven vents are blowing. So I'm going to let it sit back there for 10 minutes. If you leave it sit a little longer, it won't be any big deal, but you need to leave it sit for at least 10 minutes to let that yeast activate. My pizza dough has sat for about 10 minutes, giving that yeast time to kind of rise. Now this does not rise like bread dough where I would leave it sit for, an hour or two and it would come up to the, rim of my bowl or even higher in a nice rounded shape. It's just a very quick recipe, not like a true yeast bread where you would leave it sit for a long time. Now when I make this, I like to do a little kneading of it. So if I put a little flour on my countertop, I can then grab my dough, and like I said, it's pretty sticky, and one of the reasons I kind of like to knead this is if I knead it in some of this flour, then I kind of work out some of that stickiness, and I think it makes it a little easier to make it into that round pizza shape on the stone. So I'm just going to work that yeast in and do a little kneading. A knead, you just kind of roll it over and press it with your hands. It looks like I could use a little more flour, sticking both to my hands and to the countertop. This is kind of the fun part of doing a yeast product, is getting to play around with the dough. Alright, so now it's not quite as sticky and it's easier to handle. At this point, I am going to get that very hot stone out of the oven. It's probably been in there 25 to 30 minutes. Alright, I do not want to touch that with my hands or set it on my countertop, so I'll put it on that pot holder there. Alright, now this is the part where I get fancy and I start throwing pizza crust up in the air and making these awesome circles. I wish. I have yet to master that skill. And again, I'm getting a little bit of stickiness on my counter, so I'm working some of that flour into it again. I do find, because my stone is really, really hot, that I want to try to make as much of my circle kind of as I can, kind of getting it started up here. And then when it starts to kind of fall apart on me, I set it down on here. Now, I did not grease my stone. My stone is pretty well seasoned and things don't stick to it too much, but if you have trouble with sticking, or if you're using a regular pizza pan, please put a little cooking spray down first. Now my hands are sticky, sticky, sticky. So I've got two options: more flour, or that cooking spray comes in handy for this part as well. So a little spray on my hands, get it onto both of them, can help as well. And as I said, I am far from a master pizza maker. My crust is not turning out perfectly circular. It's okay. It still tastes the same whether it's circular or not. If you get some little gaps in the middle, which I don't want to touch that hot, hot stone there. Let's raise it up. I do have a few. Oh my, you can see how my stone is definitely, what a mess. Definitely greasy and does not have problems with this pizza coming off, because it slid right off long before I wanted it to. Anyway, you can just kind of pinch those little spots together that are giving you a little trouble. Because mine slid off, I think I'm going to have a couple holes in it, but it, like I said, will still taste great. I like to put on top of this a little bit of cornmeal, just a little scattering around it. It kind of helps to give like a little seal to the top of it, so when I go to put my pizza sauce on, it doesn't sink down into the crust, and it kind of keeps that crust and all your layers separate. The other thing that helps with that is that we're going to put this pizza back into the oven without toppings for 15 minutes. The dough will be pretty much cooked when we put the toppings on, and it's just a matter of putting it back in to melt the cheese. All right, so back to the oven we go for 15 minutes. My crust just came out of the oven after 15 minutes. As you can see, it's starting to get golden brown. It's pretty much cooked. It's just a matter of putting those toppings on now and letting our cheese melt. From this point on, it's kind of up to you on what you would like to put on the top of your pizza. I have some pizza sauce that I made out of my tomatoes from my garden last month. Any pizza sauce you like from the store would be just fine. Takes about 1 cup of sauce for one of these pizza crust. Although that's a bit of a personal preference too on how much sauce you like to have on your pizza. Tonight I am going to put mushrooms on all of it and onions on half of it and some pepperoni, and I've got both mozzarella and a little cheddar cheese that was left over that I grated up from tacos last night. So I figure I might as well put that to use and use it up on tonight's homemade pizza. All right, lots of cheese. Before I go any farther with that cheese, I like a little shake of Italian seasoning on there as well. This is just a mixture of parsley and oregano. Things good Italian cooks use in all their sauces. All right, I probably got at least a teaspoon on there. Finish off my mozzarella cheese. Add a little bit of that cheddar cheese. And then I just put it back into the oven. Oh, maybe for just like 10 minutes or so. Basically, all I need to do at this point is to get my cheese to brown and get my mushrooms and things to heat through a little bit. So off to the oven we go again. Check out this pizza. That cheese has melted. It's starting to brown in places. We've got some nice golden brown crispy crust along the edge there. Oh, I think I'm ready to call the family and eat this pizza. All right, let's check out this pizza. It's a nice hand-tossed type of pizza crust. And if you look at that nice bread-like texture with a few little air pockets in there, just how you want it in the bottom. Nice and, a little bit crisp, but not real dark brown, just a nice golden color. Like I said, no need to buy those bought-in mixes or even those frozen pizzas. This is an easy way to make a healthy pizza without any of those added ingredients that we don't know how to pronounce.